enjoyed so far. Also, the rights are fully formalized in line with the EU. What Serbia has always supported has thus been realized, which is for structures of the Serb community in Kosovo and Metohija not to be viewed as illegal or parallel structures, says Nikolic. President Nikolic expects the Serbian Assembly to accept the agreement with Pristina, adding that the Serbian government has the right to verify citizens' support to the agreement in a referendum. European Enlargement Commissioner Stefan Füle reiterated that the agreement with Pristina is a historic breakthrough and a strong message on Serbia's European position, but that Brussels now expects implementation of the agreement. As he stated, the authorities in Belgrade will choose the way to enable the implementation of the agreement reached in Brussels without rejecting the possibility to decide on the issue in a referendum. In addition to implementation of the agreement with Pristina, Füle stated that Serbia must continue reforms and the fight against corruption. Füle, who arrived in Belgrade several days before the European Commission's recommendation to the EU foreign ministers to open the accession talks with Serbia, also held talks with Serbian Prime Minister Ivica Dačić, Deputy Prime Minister Aleksandar Vučić, and Deputy Prime Minister for European Integration Suzana Ljubišić. Serbian Prime Minister Ivica Dačić told Serbian MPs that the Brussels agreement was the best that could have been achieved under the circumstances and that Serbia ought to get stronger instead of celebrating defeats. He told the opponents to the declaration, members of the Democratic Party of Serbia, that they had had enough time to resolve the Kosovo issue as it was during their rule that independence was proclaimed. Milena Nikolic has more. Prime Minister Dačić said that with the Brussels agreement, Serbia did not recognize independence of Kosovo, nor did it capitulate, and he emphasized that rejecting the agreement might have ended in a possible storm, as he put it. Dačić added that no one from the EU had asked of Serbia to recognize independence of Kosovo, and even if they had, Serbia would not have agreed to that. Expounding on the government's report on the negotiations within which the Brussels agreement was reached, Dačić emphasized that Serbia must continue the battle for a final solution to the status of Kosovo and Metohija. Dačić stated that the Brussels agreement was the best that could have been achieved under the circumstances, and that, of course, everyone would be even happier if more could have been achieved. Had Serbia stopped the negotiations, it would be isolated again, while Kosovo and all our neighbors would be proceeding towards Europe, he stated, adding that Serbia had missed several opportunities before, such as the Dayton Agreement, then the 5th of October 2000, and now this is an opportunity for us to try and defend our national and state interests in a different manner, instead of glorifying our defeats as we have been doing for centuries, Dačić stated. The Prime Minister emphasized that the government had adopted the agreement with the consent of Serbian President Tomislav Nikolic, but was also matters besides the consent of the executive power, with consent of the Parliament as well. While the Prime Minister was speaking about the Brussels agreement, the MPs of the Democratic Party of Serbia made some objections and remarks, to which the Prime Minister replied that they should respect the majority opinion and work in Serbia's interests. The fact that one does not want to lie about Kosovo does not mean that they love it less than you do, said the Prime Minister. There was a war, the country suffered under sanctions, we lost battles and territories, and we plundered ourselves during the transition process, and only if we have courage and vision can we turn Serbia into a prosperous country, said Dačić. He emphasized that Serbia needed life and not victims, and asked the MPs of the Democratic Party of Serbia why they did not send an army to Kosovo after the violence exerted against Kosovo Serbs in 2004, or after Kosovo declared independence in 2008, while that party was in power in Serbia, and are now criticizing the agreement without any idea of a different solution. Most MPs from the ruling coalition and the opposition announced they would support the government's report in order that tensions be alleviated and Serbia's EU integration continues. An efficient implementation of the agreement with Pristina is of strategic importance for Serbia, and so is the continuation of the dialogue. This will intensify the EU integration process and create a better investment setting, said Serbian Prime Minister Ivica Dačić at a conference entitled Serbia and the Security and Economic Challenges of the Euro-Atlantic Region, held at Megatrend University in Belgrade. Slaviana Pavlich has more. Serbia's role is clear. It has been and will remain a guarantor of stability in Eastern Europe, a reliable partner and a good neighbor of all the states, and will continue supporting the EU integration and regional cooperation, said the Prime Minister. Last week, we sent a clear message to all citizens, international partners, and the EU about the policy we are resolved to conduct in order to resolve the historic and the biggest issue we are facing, the issue of Kosovo and Metohija, Dačić said. We have managed to clearly present our readiness for compromising the interests of Serbian citizens and the Serbs of Kosovo and Metohija, said Dačić, adding that negotiations have been held with opponents in order that an agreement in the interest of all and in the interest of the future be reached. The Prime Minister said that Serbia was also ready to have direct talks with Pristina, which does not mean that it does not appreciate the good services of EU High Representative Catherine Ashton. He assessed Ashton's mediation in the talks as useful, principled, and well-meaning. Dačić said Serbia continued its battle against crime and corruption and called on all in the government to support Serbia's economic policy and all the ministers to conduct preparations for the negotiating process on the EU course. The real work is ahead of us, he said, stressing that no one in the government must forget about their obligation to respect the recommendations of independent regulatory bodies. The Brussels agreement has opened the path for the EU Council of Ministers to propose in June the opening of negotiations on membership of Serbia in the EU, said the European Parliament rapporteur for Serbia, Jelko Kacin. He pointed out that it was less important if the talks are to begin in June, towards the end of 2013 or early next year. But what matters is the reforms Serbia will implement and use as the foundation for a true rule of the law. The first chapters to be opened are chapters 23 and 24, the judiciary and the basic rights, justice, solidarity and security. They are to be difficult, but will put Serbia on the course of the rule of law, said Kacin. He congratulated Prime Minister Dačić on his personal engagement of success in the achievement of the agreement with Pristina, and assessed that the agreement represented a historic breakthrough transcending the borders of the region. During the process, we in the European Union as well have learned a lot about the dialogue and what can be applied in other parts of the EU. For example, in the unresolved issue of Cyprus, Kacin said. Serbia has chosen a path of military neutrality and cooperation with NATO member states through the Partnership for Peace program, said Kacin, assessing that the strengthening of cooperation with NATO member states will strengthen Serbia's position as a reliable partner.
EU Enlargement Commissioner Stefan Füle has said that after the signing of the agreement with Pristina, Serbia is one step from starting the pre-accession talks with the Union, and the key element for progressing towards Europe is the battle against corruption and crime. During the presentation of the big project by the EU and the Council of Europe for the strengthening of the battle against corruption in Serbia, he has underlined that the political will is the crucial ingredient in fighting corruption, and the Serbian citizens must be aware that nobody is above the law. The reporter Fjelica Tapušković. Füle has praised the Serbian government for placing the battle against corruption as its central activity, while adding that it must be done simultaneously with the judicial reform, and pointed those are the key elements in Serbia's progress on the path of European integrations. He has described the signing of the agreement of Belgrade and Pristina as a historic breakthrough that has contributed to Serbia getting closer to the Union. According to Füle, this agreement now has to be realized in order for all EU member states to unconditionally set the date for the commencement of Serbia's negotiations with the Union. Speaking of the significance of battling corruption, the European Commissioner has pointed to the necessity of improvements in the fields of witness protection, financial intelligence, information and special prosecution for organized crime. Also, the citizens have to feel that the judiciary is functional and the main argument in that domain is the law, not bribery. First, Serbian Deputy Prime Minister Aleksandar Vučić has announced that by June 15th the strategy for the battle against corruption will be passed, which is also the last condition for Serbia to be given to pay the negotiations. But he also stressed that this document is important for the benefit of the citizens first and foremost, and only then because of Europe. The country is heading forward and nobody can stop it in making progress, attaining the rule of the law, establishing the true legal state. It is also a fact that chapters 23 and 24 will certainly be most important for us. We are all facing serious political problems. We will also be facing huge economic problems, but one of the conditions for our political survival and economic improvement is the fierce struggle against corruption. For that, we need assistance in the form of specialist training, education, and information tools, said Vucic. He has emphasized that in the past 8 months, Serbia has done much more than in the previous 8 years. That's his belief that the European Union should award Serbia and its citizens because they have deserved it and not punishing them. More specifically, Serbia has been adopting European laws, listening to and accepting the advice of the European and Venice Commission, including the latest objection about the law on court organization, Vucic explained. Head of the Council of Europe office in Belgrade, Icom IC R20, has pointed that the way of reforms is not always easy and simple, especially when it comes to fighting corruption, which corrodes the rule of the law and its institutions. According to her, Serbia has achieved good results due to implementing many recommendations and conventions of the Council of Europe. Therefore, Serbia deserves all kinds of help, such as the project strengthening capacities of police and judiciary for battling corruption in Serbia, whose goal is to help enforcing the law and discovering, investigating, prosecuting, and trying to enforce the cases of corruption. The announced project, done in the cooperation of the Council of Europe and the European Union, will last 28 months and encompass a specialist training for the judiciary, prosecution and the police, introduction of new information technologies for the investigation of corruption and corporate crime, as well as running the risk analysis. We continue our broadcast with our regular feature, Music Heritage. Today we are presenting the 14th Music Festival, the Days of Fireworks, that is held every year in Veliko Gradište, a town in northeast Serbia. At the beginning, enjoy joyful music, a folk dance performed by famous artist Vladimir Pavlović Carevac, to whom the feature is dedicated.